This is KymB reporting from the weed capital of the world, New York City. After almost 100 years of prohibition, the government has finally loosened the hold on cannabis. As we enter a new industry of innovation, technology, and greed, there are some cannabis professionals who have pushed through the doors of opportunity. I talk to them unfiltered and uncut. We get the real story from the highest in the room. Happy New Year and happy 2025 to my fellow weed heads and stoners. We are here with Kristin Jordan, and my podcast, Highest in the Room, is sponsored by CMB, Cannabis Means Business, formerly the CWCB Expo. Kristin, can you
Hello,
believe it's
Kim.
2025? Holy
I tell you, it's a
shit.
real milestone, isn't it?
My goodness, here we are, quarter way through a new century, and cannabis is now becoming an everyday tool in people's boxes of wellness. So it's a wild time to be alive, but I'm pretty excited about the future of it. So tell us where you're from and where you're at.
Well, Kim, I am originally from Seoul, South Korea. I was born in Korea and adopted to Syracuse, New York, where I grew up. And I'm currently in the Upper West Side of Manhattan looking at a beautiful sunny day.
It is a beautiful sunny day. I'm reporting from Staten Island and I feel the sun on my back. And, beginning of January, you're always happy for some sunshine. I have some roots to Syracuse too. My sister, Lauren, is the director of neuroscience at Syracuse University. So it's a little cannabis hub, I feel like,
Oh,
Syracuse.
yes. Don't sleep on Western New York. I tell you, there's a lot of activity, a lot of excitement, and frankly, the full supply chain in Western New York and specifically in Syracuse. You can see representatives along the supply side, the retail side, and everybody's ready and excited to enter into another year of sales.
I love it. I love it. And as an upstate girl myself, I really feel that in my soul. Um, Kristen, tell us three things about yourself that we wouldn't know unless we asked.
Well, so in my cannabis friend world, folks know me best for being a gadget queen. I love consumption devices. The more, the better. The more interesting, the more beautiful, the more accessible, the better. So I have a vast collection of all different kinds of vaporizers, dab rigs, pipes.
Do you
I'm
have a
always
favorite?
well, let's see. Okay, yes. So my favorite thing that I'm using now, currently, is, and I've bought three of them because I accidentally break them, are the what do they call them? The pipes that are you put your pre-roll in, made by House of Puff. And my current obsession is the black one. It's a clear glass. I have a purple one, a black one, a green one. And what's lovely about them is that when you're sharing, as I do with my husband often, the pre-roll does not get wet or moist. It has a nice little footing on it, so I can set it down on my ashtray without it touching anything. I'm a big fan. They're wonderful
I have
products.
a few too, and I really like them. That's
I'm waiting for
that's
my
so fun.
my matching tamping stick. That's supposed to arrive very soon as well.
I love it. I really shout out to House of Puff. The ladies over there, Christina and Holly, have really done a badass job of designing things that are functional as well as aesthetically pleasing. Continue. What's two more things that we should know about you?
Kim, I'm an avid knitter. It's been a couple minutes since I've really dove into my bag of yarn. I've been a little bit busy with the cannabis industry, but I'm looking forward. That's one of my priorities for this year is to refine some of my hobbies. And so you'll be expecting some sort of a knitted hat or a scarf sometime in the near future.
I'll take
So
it.
yeah, I find that that's a really relaxing way for me to meditate and to be a little bit productive.
I love that. And what
Yeah.
else? One more thing.
Let's see. One more thing that's interesting about me. So lately, my current obsession is to watch Nat Geo while knitting, and I am obsessed with elephants. I can't get enough of them. There's a great series on Nat Geo right now. They're beautiful creatures and they're so emotionally intelligent. I really had no idea. So I'm really excited about learning more about elephants this year.
My business partner, Deja, shares the love of elephants. I'll have to connect you two over that.
Oh, for sure.
Um, So, uh, it's, as we said, 2025, and cannabis has been, it went medical in California in the, 2000s, and went adult use in Colorado in, I think, 2013. So it's, been around, and I want to know what your thoughts are of what's in cannabis right now? What's in the industry? What's in consumerism?
I think for me, what is in is really thinking about this holistically, right? That like no longer are we talking about this solely as a medicinal plant or an adult use or a recreational scenario. This is a lifestyle, and to be able to incorporate it in the various form factors has been really exciting as we have an evolving marketplace with various form factors, right? In our traditional markets, oftentimes there weren't manufactured products or manufactured goods. Now we have topicals, we have food additive products, we have all kinds of methods and ingestion capabilities, including topicals, which for those of us who are just dealing with pain or inflammation and do not want the effects of being high, allows for a lot of other opportunities for use. So this idea that it is solely for a specific purpose, I think is out in 2025. I think the idea that we can incorporate cannabis in various forms into our lifestyle is what we're going to see much more.
I love that. And I agree. We sell a CBD pain cream on tribetokes.com, and it flies off the shelf. And we have hundreds of reviews of people who use it on a regular basis and swear by it. Also, there are so many different applications and so many different cannabinoids. I think it's just something you have in your wellness toolbox to use for all the things. As you can see, I'm into the whole holistic lifestyle, and I only sell products that I would give my own mother. And so I think that there is a real like lifestyle aspect to it, and I see it growing. And I think that's why the industry is growing so rapidly. Yo, sis, tell me what's out. What is out in cannabis? What is passe? What is done?
What is out? Well, I think the idea of struggling. We're done with struggling. We're over uh, this being a hard industry, and we're ready to just put our heads down and do the work. This has been a struggle for operators, for professionals, for frankly, for consumers to understand, how this works. But this year, I think we're going to turn a corner, and people are ready to put their heads down and just get the job done. We're done with bemoaning the challenges of the industry. We just want to be moving things forward. So I think that's what New York is ready for.
I agree. I think that like that's all 50 states, babe, possibly the entire world. I would dare say universe, but I don't want to get too spicy today. Um, Speaking of doing the work and the growth of the industry, New York just announced that they've surpassed $1 billion worth of sales, which is phenomenal and just scratching the tip of the iceberg. What do you think the current, like the real deal current status of cannabis in New York is right now?
Well, sticking on this positive note, look, this has been a challenge to get launched, and it is an exciting number to see 1 billion. I think New Jersey also reported $1 billion in sales recently as well. I think I saw that headline this morning. So the idea of the mid-Atlantic states coming online, and specifically the tri-state area coming online, I think is very important for this country. And it's very important for the industry to take hold in these states that have such adjacent industries like retail being so vibrant in New York City, like the financial capital of the world being in New York City. So much of this international play happens in the tri-state area. And so to bring cannabis online is very important. And so,
Also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's okay.
Also, agriculture. They recently just said that this is, we're representing cannabis as part of agriculture. And a lot of people don't know this because they constantly are, boasting, and I boast all the time about living in New York, that it's the financial capital of the world. But our second momentum is agriculture. And so I think that it's a really important thing to fucking bring agriculture back to New York.
Absolutely. Listen, our farmers in upstate, we talked about Syracuse. There are a number of different farms that have become licensed and have participated both on the cultivation and the processing side in Western New York, and they are crucial. They're vital to the industry. And I will imagine that they will be big players in the industry as we continue to unfold. But not for nothing, Kim, it's important that we continue to support these small farmers. Many of them are longtime family-run companies. I think of Beacon Skiff, which operates under the Heirloom umbrella right in my backyard in Lafayette, New York. That's I believe, 100-year-old company, traditionally an apple orchard. As kids, we used to go and pick apples every year. I can't tell you how exciting it is to have them as part of this industry. But they are firm supporters of the agricultural industry in Syracuse, in Western New York, and that infrastructure has been in place for years, for generations of families. And so it is so meaningful that New York started with these folks, but it is important, imperative that we continue to support them as the industry matures, as new licensees come on board, more sophisticated out-of-state operators come in. It's important that we continue to buttress and support the folks that took this not once, but twice. Remember, our farmers were hemp farmers first. And unfortunately, that industry did not take off in the way that we had hoped. And so they tried it again with cannabis. And we want to just make sure that they're continuing to be supported in every way to continue in this industry.
I agree and support that and love that bird's eye view of it. And having the dual kind of like dual citizenship of upstate New York and New York City, we really get to see the entire supply chain and how it works. And if you haven't been to upstate New York, it is farmland and mountains. And a lot of people are always so shocked when I tell them that. But, we have a lot of room to do all of the things, and the fertile soil upstate, a lot of it organic and untouched, is going to be banging for some fabulous flower. So I'm really excited to watch where the growth comes from. So you're like my real estate guru, and you are a real estate agent and a broker, correct?
I am, yes.
How long have you been doing that for?
So, Kim, as an attorney, I've been a licensed broker for a number of years, but I started Park Jordan in 2021, the same year that we legalized adult use cannabis, because I saw a great need for that expertise to help our operators navigate the commercial real estate, especially in downstate in New York City. Look, this is a very sophisticated retail environment. Commercial landlords, have been in this industry, or have been supporting commercial real estate in New York City for a long time. And these new operators really need some assistance in navigating not only the negotiation, but the process, and explaining that process, our regulatory process, back to the landlords. Most landlords have never dealt with a highly regulated industry like ours. The SLA operates very differently than cannabis licenses do in terms of real estate. So there's a lot of confusion. We dealt with a number of lawsuits and injunctions, which have further confused landlords here in New York. So it has been a little bit of a challenge, but also very rewarding to be able to bring my expertise as an attorney and as a regulatory professor to the commercial real estate industry because it is very confusing.
It is. And in other states, it has been synonymous with cannabis and landlords getting price gouged, getting, shit on, getting contracts switched around, kicked out of locations. And it can be confusing. And now the market of upstate New York and downstate New York are two very different,
Yes.
environments. And so, I would assume that a lot of the hurdles that we go through in upstate New York are not the same challenges that are happening in, Westchester, Orange County down, Rockland, Orange
Yes.
and down. Can you explain the differences of what
Yeah.
all of that looks like? Because it's really important when you're a micro business, a processor, any type of operator with a license to make sure you understand all of the legalities, because the injunction scared the shit out of everyone, and
Really
not
did.
even the landlords. I feel like even the OCM doesn't even understand.
For sure. I mean, and listen, most of these lawsuits are at the whim of the judge, right? So the outcome is really up in the air. And I think the agency is doing its best to try to navigate that cautiously, of course. But it makes it even more difficult when they can't be responsive because of the lawsuit. And so it leaves the rest of us to try to figure it out and read between the lines, right? And to make an intelligent assessment on behalf of our clients. I think the thing that differentiates us from other real estate brokers is that we have that expertise in the industry and we are constantly attuned to what's happening. I mean, if I'm not reading something about the industry, I'm watching a video, I'm watching a webinar, I'm constantly inundated with the goings on of the New York State cannabis industry, where I don't think that my fellow brokers who are not so entrenched in the industry have that expertise. And where that's helpful is really navigating the additional challenges, right? So typical brokerage, you find a site, you negotiate a deal with a landlord, you get a lease, not a whole lot of magic there. With respect to cannabis, there are some nuances, of course, in that we are federally illegal. And so many mortgages that are given by a federally insured bank have prohibitions against having tenants who receive money and pay their rent because of a cannabis sale. So that makes it a little bit challenging and complicated. But also some of the regulatory issues that are requirements. So for instance, we're dealing with a client in upstate New York, in Western New York, that does not have a C of O, a certificate of occupancy for the building. And in talking to the municipality, a very small municipality with only a handful of people, part-time employees in the municipality, so it's been challenging to not only get them on the phone, but to walk them through the steps. And we're still in a position where we're not sure how to get a certificate of occupancy, and the agency OCM requires it. So there are some of these disconnects where we're just working through these challenges and not exactly sure how we'll get there. But given our expertise and our legal background, it's been helpful to work directly with the client to figure out these problems.
Yeah, and it's a difficult situation because you're signing a lease for a place that you're going to be doing business there potentially 5 or 10 years. Commercial leases aren't like apartments where you sign for a year.
That's
These
right.
are long. I mean, I have a lease, we have a facility on 38th Street in Manhattan, and we have a 10-year lease.
That's
It's
right.
not like these commercial leases are not a joke. They are 10 years. And I've owned businesses before, and I had to break a lease once, and I sublet it
Expensive.
out, and they broke the lease. And guess what? Weingarten came after me. That's a big commercial, real estate company that owns it, and they don't play around. So if you're, sourcing a place to do business with longevity, you've got to be very clear on what the terms are. And not only do you have to do the regulatory side of cannabis, but you also have to dot all the I's and cross the T's
That's right.
for just understanding what your accountability is. And I think in all of the new markets that have popped up across the United States, where we see an influx of dispensaries open, in California, I've seen dispensaries open and close.
That's right. And that's not
And
the goal here. We want these stores to stay open and be successful. Another difference between upstate and downstate is that, again, because this is such a retail heavy environment, and certainly our clients are looking for the best retail location that they can afford in New York City that is compliant on all fronts. Most landlords want to know who the tenant is, right? So we suggest that all of our operators put together a one pager, some bios, headshots, information about your license. If you have drawings of the interior, of proposed drawings of the interior of the space, logos, they really want to know, is this going to look like a head shop? Is this going to look like, something more elegant, like our friends down at Ulta in Chinatown? Vanessa Yi Chan has built out this beautiful, gorgeous store. They really want to understand who's operating, what your financial background is, right? Like, so, having your financials, proof of funds, some sort of demonstration that you have the ability to pay these rents. And, in New York City, they're real rents, Kim. I mean, we're talking upwards of $20,000, $40,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month for prime locations. And even in Harlem, we're looking at $20,000, $30,000 a month. So they want
that's
to
a big
see that
nut to crack.
it is. And we're not talking large spaces. I think initially what I was hearing from the DASNY search originally, they were looking at much larger spaces. Our operators are being much more savvy lately, and we're looking at 1,500 square foot boxes, just enough to give to provide for all the security measures and all the things that are necessary to be compliant. But nobody's looking to take on a giant space, especially while we don't have our on-site consumption rules. Also, there's no need to take on a large space. But those who are looking at on-site consumption leases or licenses, for instance, we're strategizing with those clients. So potentially we're looking at a suite that may have expansion space next door, and taking a right to take that additional space if and when that becomes available and a license allows for that. So thinking really thoughtfully about, what does this look like in, as you say, some of these leases are 10 years. What's this look like in 5 years? Do we want expansion rights? Do we want contraction rights? Also, a lot of these retail clients are now thinking about delivery. And in New York City, where are people going to park? We just started congestion pricing on Sunday. There are considerations around that as well. So it's really the real estate piece is, number one, your most expensive line item aside from your compensation for your staff, but also it is part of your long-term vision. And it's not just for retail. We're also talking on the supply side, right? I think it gets lost on some folks that, for instance, processors can have multiple locations. So perhaps it makes sense for a processor to think about something a little bit further west and then something a little bit further east, and making sure that our highways and byways comport with the logistics of how they're going to operate. So real estate is very important for this. I know there are a lot of folks who are just going out on their own and calling landlords. I would highly recommend that you work with a professional to make sure that you're set up, because 10 years is a long time to have a shitty lease.
It absolutely is. Kristin, because I live part-time in upstate New York. I'm in Cooperstown, which is like an hour north of Albany, about 90 minutes from Syracuse. The dispensaries upstate are enormous compared to what is happening in New York City. I mean, there is not such a constraint on space in upstate New York, I mean, New York City, there's, it just is what it is. It's a little
Yes.
man-made island where we decided to cram as many people as we possibly can into one space, where upstate, it's just rolling hills and fields and the opportunity to, have as much space as you want. When you're looking for a space in upstate New York, there's a lot less people. Do you think a lot of the dispensaries are forward thinking to have consumption lounges upstate like they are in New York City? Because everybody in New York City is talking about consumption
That's right.
lounges.
I think that people live differently also in different parts of the state, right? And the idea of driving to and from consumption spots might be a consideration where it isn't in New York City. I'm not hearing the noise about a desire for consumption in the way that we do in New York. I think that we also live in tiny little boxes here, and we're always looking for that communal space, a shared environment to enter into, where maybe that's not the same concern in upstate New York. But to your point about the larger spaces, that's my experience as well. We talked about Syracuse, and I believe Flintstone is, what is it, 60,000 square feet, something very large. We've got our friends at the Higher Calling with, I think it's a 3,000 square foot space. Some of that is just a function of what's available and what is compliant. And obviously in New York, we just have so many retail spaces that are, these smaller spaces that work for our use. In other places, look, most people are not building a building to house their retail cannabis business. We are a cash poor industry, and typically we're just looking for a leased opportunity. And in places like Syracuse, there's a finite number of properties that abide by the setbacks for churches and schools and the like. And not for nothing, it's not just a 200 feet from a church or 500 feet from a school. It's also a landlord's willingness and desire to have a cannabis tenant. And Kim, it's 2025, and I still answer phone calls where people say, "You want to sell dope in my building?" Now, I believe dope is heroin, so the answer is no. But that it's that kind of perception that there's really a lack of understanding about what we're actually doing.
We still have a lot of work to do
That's it.
education wise. So,
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about the injunctions, and, that how has like these crazy injunctions that I feel like they keep popping up, like every other week we see a new lawsuit happening. How is that affecting the sourcing of real estate?
Kim, it's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible because, unlike us, who is paying attention on a daily basis to what's happening in the industry, our landlords are not. And so to bring them up to speed every single time, I mean, it's just another reason for them not to want to work with our industry, right? So the confusing injunction that resulted from the original lawsuit, the Fiore lawsuit, I mean, that lasted years. And, we didn't have any good information to share with our landlords, and people languished with leases long term. This
Yeah.
current lawsuit, the order needed to be clarified because it was a little bit confusing as to who it actually applied to. And every time something like this happens, every time we go back to our landlords and try to explain it to them, I mean, it's like crickets. Like they just don't. They'd much rather take a Dunkin' Donuts with a personal guarantee from somebody who owns 6 other Dunkin' Donuts in New York City. It's just the reality of it. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And with so many challenges, with the governor saying that the rollout has been a disaster, does not build confidence in commercial real estate. So we do our best to try to educate and to present the risks, right? Like this is a partnership, sometimes a 10-year partnership with landlords in a real way. They cannot access your space in the same way that they could another tenant. There are regulatory restrictions around their accessibility to your premises and other things. And not for nothing, there are situations where landlords actually lose their bank accounts because they're accepting cannabis money. We've seen that repeatedly. So there are a lot of challenges just generally from the industry being federally prohibited. But then you add on these complications from lawsuits and the unpredictability of when licenses are issued, when people can get operational, when approvals are going to come. It's challenging. It's challenging. But what we try to do is just we're honest and we share all the information that is important for an educated decision to be made.
I think it's so important for those who are licensed to make sure that they have somebody who understands real estate and all of the things encompassing it when before signing a lease. And I've already heard so many nightmares about, holding real estate and all of the things. And so I urge people to make sure you have an expert on your side, because these are the things that you will regret in 5 years when you're, struggling to expand and you're locked into a lease and you have no place to go. So,
That's right.
Kristin, thank you so much for all of your vast wealth of information. You've been in the cannabis industry long term. You are I mean, we've seen you at so many events over the years, sparking up with everyone, and it's been great to have you. And I love, that we have you in the community because you've been so generous to offer, information to people when they need it. How can, if somebody is interested in chatting with you more, where can we find you?
Yeah. So I am at Kristin, Kristin .Jordan, Jordan, at parkjordan.com. And that's really the best way to get me. Um, I'm happy to answer any questions, Kim. I appreciate this time. I appreciate all that you do for this industry. We've been doing this a long time, and it's so important that we continue to stay in this industry and support one another. So thank you for all that you do, and thank you for having me. And thanks to the Expo for supporting this very important podcast and to bringing visibility to the industry leaders.
Yeah, CMB, where cannabis means business, baby.
That's it.
I'm excited for June and all of the new things that will be rolling out. So let's wrap it up. This is Kristin Jordan and KymB, and we are the highest in the room.
Thank you.